Okay, we are live now. Welcome to the Wrocław Jack. I'm happy that you all came here today. Today our guest is Chiamaka Okenwa, and we are happy that you are today with us. Everyone who will be active on the YouTube chat may have the opportunity to win JetBrains license. After the presentation, I will ask those questions to Chiamaka, and she will hopefully answer to that. I hope you will all enjoy that, and Chiamaka, stage is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So today my presentation is actually going to be an optional, and I guess most developers would have actually come across optionals because of the null point exception that we happen to experience a lot. So I'm just going to be talking about why optional matters in your Java code. So just a brief introduction about myself. I'm a software engineer based in Lagos, Nigeria. I have close to 2 years experience working in the fintech space, and I'm basically passionate about developer communities. I've spoken at a lot of interesting conferences as well, like the Github Africa meetup, the London Java community, and the recent nowDay conference. So most of the time I basically just love interacting with more developers, speaking at more conferences, and even volunteering to organize more of these conferences. Okay, let's just get right into today's session. I'm going to make the session a bit more practical because, I mean, it's optional, so I have to definitely show you how to use it, especially when coding in Java. So the major problem is that, as most Java developers would know, is many of us have actually encountered the infamous null point exceptions. And these exceptions usually occur when you're trying to access an object that is basically null in the first instance. And some of this case, we usually have to always check for null. So usually you have to check if that object or what you're trying to access in the first place is not null. And then most of the time, it kind of affects your code readability. So like, for instance, I have a simple code here, and I have a person object, which has an address object inside that person object. And trying to access that address, I have first of all, make sure that this person is not null in the first place. And then after accessing this person, I have to then say, oh, okay, we get the address for this particular object. And then we have to check if this address is not null. And you can see, you can do this a lot more better with optionals. And that's why I'm going to show you in this presentation. So in Java 8, that was when optional was introduced. And for an optional, it's basically a container or a wrapper class that can hold a specific type of an object. So it could or could not be null, depending on the reference. So in what ways can we create optionals? So first off, we can create an optional using optional.empty. So I have sample test cases here. Okay, so I have a person object, and just before I, I would just take off the address. I just want to make it a lot easier when creating this object. So I'm just going to write another test here, and then I wanted to create an optional. As empty. Okay, so first of all, I have test case here, and then basically I'm just going to create an empty optional. So I'm just going to say optional. And we could have something just as simple as this, just creating an optional and basically just saying that this optional that I'm creating is currently empty. So if we want to create an optional for a particular object, I have a model. I have a model object for a person. So I'm just going to say person. Okay, first off, let me just make this null. And I'm going to definitely expect a null point exception here. So I'm going to test an expected case. And then I'm just going to say optional of person. So I have this object here. And then I just want to make an assertion. I could just copy this here. And then create an optional person here as well. Okay, I could just say person optional, and this is equal to optional of person. And then I want to assert that my person is in real sense, no. Okay, so for Hamcrest, I really can't assert for this. But then again, I'm expecting the null pointer exception, so I could just easily just access the person optional and see what it returns for me in the first place. Okay, so let's run this test and see. Oh, okay, so I can just take this out here. Yeah. Okay, so it actually passed the test. And this is basically because I'm expecting a null pointer exception to be thrown when I'm trying to access this personal object or personal object. And when I do a .get, this is null. But for a situation whereby I know I'm expecting a null object, so I want to be able to not get the null pointer exception. So what I can do in this case is just to say, oh, this is going to be of nullable, and instead I'm expecting a no such element exception. Yeah, so no such element exception. And let's see. Okay, and we can see that our test case passed because right now we're saying that, oh, this person can actually be null. And in optionals, when you're creating null objects or you're expecting that to be null, you use off nullable than using just of certain kind of objects. So those are basically the three ways of creating optionals. If you want to access optionals, we also have different interesting methods when it comes to accessing optionals.
Hello,
Okay, so
there is a question. Could you increase the font size of the code?
okay.
You can do so by Ctrl+Shift+A and then increase size. It's action bar. It depends if it's on the and now increase size. Increase font size. And there it's or it's maybe
I don't know
more.
if this is better. It's sweaty because of the weather. Is this better?
Yeah, I think so. If Max, could you confirm on the chat? Okay, thank you.
All right, so okay, that's fine then. Okay, yeah, so we're going to talk about 3 other methods when it comes to accessing optionals. And I'm just going to copy this, not to waste so much time. Okay, so let me just create a new person object. And I have to create a constructor for this. So thanks to IntelliJ, I could just generate a constructor. Don't really have to type out everything. Okay, yeah, and then we get a problem here because we need to now say, so this person just has a name and age, so I'm just going to use my first name and just any age. Okay, so you've created a new person object, and we could just say optionals of person. Okay, so this gives us an optional, and then when we want to print out the optional.get, I'm just going to create a toString method here so it can be easier. Yeah, so we want to just do an assertion. Yeah, so we can do our person here. And let's see, get name. It is actually Chiamaka. Okay, so before I do this, this is actually, okay, so here I'm just getting the person object, but if I wanted to get this from the optional object, I'm supposed to do a get first, because I actually want to get the object from the optional before I do a get name. So if you're accessing the object directly, you could just get the name of the object, but if you're accessing with an optional, you have to first of all get the particular type and then before getting the field. Okay, so let's test this. Ooh, we're not getting, oh, okay, because we're trying to access from an object. Okay, so what we can do for this particular scenario is instead of using a person, we could just use a string. Object actually have different references. So let me just say string or name would be equals to Chiamaka. And then instead of using our optionals here, we just use our name. Okay, so I'm just create an optional here. Personal. Okay, so I can try this out again. So for some weird reason, my IntelliJ happens to take a while to view. Just waiting. Ooh, still getting that assertion error. Okay, so one thing about
well, I think that the problem is that you are using assert equals, not assert that. It's the keyword of the.
Oh. Yeah, so I realized that assert that was actually
or just don't use is keyword. So I think there is a problem.
Yeah. Okay, so let's try it with assert that. Okay, so and instead, let's just go back to our person. An optional and get. What equals so. Oh, for some weird reason, it's not seeing our sat dot. Okay. Okay, so I can't seem to figure out why it's not taking this for assert that, but I guess I'll just get back to it probably before the end of the session. Okay, so in order not to waste so much time, okay, so for optionals, we also have or else, which basically when you're saying you have a person object, and let's just create another person object. And we can say this as null. Okay, so for this person object, then we want to say optional. Of person. And then just create an optional person equals to optionals. Acknowledging. And say person 2. Or else. person. Okay, so instead of return this, so or else actually returns the object itself. And we're just reading this as another person. Okay, same name. Ooh, my laptop is just hanging. Now let's just see, person 3. So we want to assert so the person get name as actually our person. Get name. I hope this works because this happens to. Oh, man, so
there is no problem with that. You have to just remove the is method, and is everything okay? Assert equals just requires two params, and there will be okay.
Oh, okay.
So just 2 equals types of params, and there will be okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I skipped. Yeah, skipped one here. Okay. Okay, so oh my God, thanks for that. All right, so we can actually see here. Yeah, so we can actually use or else. Or else just basically defines that if this doesn't happen to be true, then you just use whatever you're passing in your parameter for your or else statement. So the actual difference between or else and or else gets is the fact that the get actually takes the supplier functional interface, and instead of saying the person, we could just say or else get. So a lambda function person. Okay, so which is more or less still the same thing anyways. And another interesting thing about optionals, especially when it comes to building projects, is the fact that most of the time when you encounter certain exceptions, you want to be able to throw a different kind of exception to the client or whoever that happens to be consuming your APIs. So the cool thing about optionals is that you can actually just throw here, and let me just put, let's say I want to throw a runtime exception. And what I'm expecting here would be a runtime exception. We can just use Chiamaka. Okay, I can do this. I just want to pass this in screen. Okay, so actually we're throwing a runtime exception here, and that was actually what was expected. So that's why we have a test case that passed. So there are other ways of also accessing optionals. Another way of transforming optional is using the map method. And although I'm not really going to be going so much detail into that, but I just wanted to mention some of the best practices for optionals. So first off, optional was created to actually reduce the amount of null point exceptions in your Java code. And most of the time, people would assume that, oh, optionals is actually supposed to solve every null point exception that you actually encounter in your Java code. And in real sense, it's really not the case. And this is because there's still certain times that you'd have to deliberately want to null check yourself. Like, for instance, there's some best practices as to not passing optionals as parameters or as constructors, and then not also using them when it comes to class fields. And this is because optionals tend to be, they're actually not serializable. So most of the time it's really not advised to use it when declaring your fields in your classes. So what's really the best way to use it? So optionals are mostly used as a return type for your functions or for your methods. And in most Spring projects these days, in your data access layer where you're communicating with your database, most people prefer to declare in your interfaces for your repositories, their return types as optionals, because sometimes when you're reading data from your database, you actually not sure if that data is even there in the first place. So sometimes you want to be able to take care of certain scenarios like that would occur. And that's where most people really use optionals. And then sometimes you want to also use them in certain methods where you believe that, oh, okay, this method could actually return null in the first place. So it's actually best practice because you're telling your, or whoever that's reading your code at some point that this data that you have might be able to return null. So thank you so much for having me. This is just a brief, like my social media details, in case anyone wants to reach out to me. And heads up, thank you so much for the, yes, so thank you so much for letting me know to use assert equals without the is functions from Hamcrest. Really appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for just wanted to be here. I hope that one day you will come to the Wrocław physically and do a talk to our community. And yes, thank you all you guys, because when you had a problem, a lot of people were just active on the chat, how to solve it, how to help you. So thank you guys for being
So much.
such a kind people. You're amazing. You are great, and thank you all. Hope so. One day we will meet all physically. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.